Hello and welcome to the Nefsys UK review of the Logitech HD B990 webcam.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Michael, and we're members of the UK technical support team. We're very excited to get our hands on this new Logitech HD webcam.
The first thing you'll notice actually about this camera is it's, well, a heavyweight of the webcam world. It's easily 15 centimeters wide. Now, just to put that in perspective, I actually have its smaller brother, the C910, and you can see quite a bit smaller indeed. However, there is a justifiable reason of why this camera is so large, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Connecting the Logitech B990 to the PC was very simple. As with most webcams these days, it plugged in directly via USB and its drivers were automatically assigned by both Windows XP and Windows 7. Switching between the cameras is very easy to do in Nefsys, as Matt will demonstrate now.
Yep. So quite simply, we're using the C910 at the moment, but now that we've just plugged it in, we'll just right click on the video image and go to video settings, and you can now see we've got it plugged in here. It's just picked up, as Mike said, the generic drivers, and we've just switched over to it now. So there we go, we're now using the B990. This camera actually sits quite happily on most monitors that we've tested with, and the actual sort of clip that actually comes with the camera is actually padded, which is actually quite a nice touch because it means obviously it can sit and hug quite nicely on the monitor. Now, the only difficulty we did have was with the laptop screens. Some of the thin laptops, they've got quite slim screens, and I think because the actual sort of lip at the back of it is quite long, it actually makes it quite unstable at times. But it is certainly an improvement over the C910, I think, just because I think they've tweaked it slightly. But in our view, at least, you know, it's pretty suited, even on some of the TVs we've got here as well.
Recently, Logitech have raised the bar very high when it comes to video quality. So we had very high expectations for the Logitech HD B990. And I have to say, Logitech haven't disappointed with this camera.
Okay, so we have the B990 up and running, so I can just right click on the video and let's go down to resolution, and you can see the resolutions we've got available. So it's pretty much the standard type of resolutions you'll find with most other Logitech cameras, but of course we've got the 720p HD resolution selected here. So let me just float the image out so you can actually see it at its native size. So of course, now that we actually have the full size of the 720p camera, and of course we can now also right click on it, and you can also see the frames per second that we've got selected. So at the moment, of course, we're on 15, not too bad, it's the standard for a Nefsys conference, but of course we can take it all the way up to 30. And you know, with some moderate movement, yes, okay, there might be a bit of blurring perhaps, but I think Mike will go on and explain about the ease of the configuration and the sort of clarity and why potentially we have that slight blurring at a higher frame rate.
Yeah, as I said earlier on in the review, we're using the standard Windows drivers at the moment. And it's quite possible that when Logitech release the specific drivers for this camera, the performance will get a lot better, just in terms of frames per second and occasional blurring.
Right, so one final thing that we get to cover is why the camera is so large, and of course the ever important bandwidth requirements as well. Now, the camera is still running at HD quality with 30 frames per second. So what we've just done is we just sneakily went to the help menu and launched the bandwidth monitor, just so well, we're prepared and you can see exactly what it looks like without us faffing around. So I'll just bring up the bandwidth monitor now, and you can see at the moment it's hovering, well, anywhere between high 400s, 300 at the moment. You know, that's with not much movement at all, is it really?
No, and obviously the requirements will be a bit higher with two people in front of the camera than your normal situation whereby you'd only have one.
Because you've got twice the movement,
yeah.
Ironically. But of course, as soon as you start moving around a little bit more, then of course with Nefsys variable bit rate, it'll start going up slightly higher. So even with two of us in shot, in actual fact, it hasn't gone over 1 meg a second yet, which is pretty respectable. But going back to the very initial sort of question we led on with at the very beginning regarding the camera size and why it is so large, is the fact that it actually has a onboard encoder, an H.264 encoder. Now, admittedly, the camera itself has specifically been designed, we're told, to actually work quite well on thin clients, like Zen Desktop, for example. Main reason being is, of course, with thin clients you are quite restricted on the amount of computer power you have. Whereas, of course, today we are actually on a fairly reasonably spec Windows PC. But of course, the benefit of the camera with the onboard encoder is that if you do intend to be using this on a thin client, for example, and then of course the camera can take and absorb a lot of that workload. So, you know, in theory, you should at least get some quite good high performance with high quality video. So I think that's certainly something that could be beneficial. But for us, we'll just treat it as an ordinary webcam for the time being, I think.
And I think you can see it works very well as a normal webcam in these situations.
Indeed. Right, so I think overall, despite the fact that there's no actual sort of pricing that was made available to us at the moment, you know, it's hard to gauge sort of how valuable it would be or how beneficial it would be. But given the fact that the actual camera turned up in quite a basic cardboard box saying Logitech for Business, which was actually quite a welcome relief to actually unpack it, does suggest that maybe it's targeted towards sort of more business, you know, customers, obviously, in terms of SMEs or enterprises, and not necessarily sort of regular consumers like Skype, for instance. So in that respect, and sort of weighing everything up, we've kind of given it a provisional Nefsys review rating of 5 out of 5, and I think, you know, you'll be able to sort of follow up from that.
Yeah, we were particularly impressed with how the camera performed with just standard Windows drivers. A lot of cameras really struggle when you plug in straight into a PC and they're assigned the default drivers. We would, however, like to see how the camera performs at the higher resolutions, particularly at HD, with designated Logitech drivers. However, we realise that this camera is designed for thin client systems, and so drivers may not become available for it.
For more information and reviews, visit nefsys.co.uk.